Imagine someone broke your heart. They lied to you, ignored your messages, made you question your worth, made you cry more times than you can count. You promised yourself you'd move on. You promised yourself you'd never think about them again. And yet, weeks later, months later, maybe even years later, you still think about them. You still wonder what they're doing. You still miss them. But here's the strange question. If they hurt you so much, why does part of you still want them back? People think missing someone means they were good for you, but psychology tells a very different story. Sometimes, the people we miss the most are the people who hurt us the most, not because they were perfect, not because they were meant for us, but because the human brain forms emotional connection that don't disappear the moment a relationship ends. And understanding those connections changes everything. Imagine every relationship created, a visible chain, every conversation, every memory, every shared experience, adding another link. The longer the relationship lasts, the stronger the chain becomes. And here's the problem. Pain doesn't automatically break the chain. Brain isn't designed to simply forget people. In fact, your brain rewards connection. Every hug, every kind word, every moment of affection triggers chemicals like dopamine, the same chemical involved in motivation and reward. And once your brain associates a person with that reward, letting go becomes far more difficult than most people realize. Here's where things get really interesting. Psychologists discovered that predictable rewards aren't always the most powerful. Unexpected rewards are. That's why casinos make billions. Not because people always win, because they sometimes win. And strangely enough, some relationships follow the exact same pattern. They make you feel special. The next day they disappear. One day they make you feel loved. The next day they act distant. Your brain keeps waiting for the good version of them to come back. And without realizing it, you become emotionally trapped inside uncertainty. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. When positive experiences arrive randomly, people often become more attached, not less, which explains why some of the most painful relationships are also the hardest to leave behind. There is another reason, a deeper one. Sometimes you're not missing who they are today. You're missing who they used to be or who you hoped they would become. And those two versions can feel more real than the person standing in front of you. Human brain hates unfinished stories. When relationships end without answers, your mind keeps searching for closure. It keeps replaying conversations, replaying mistakes, replaying possibilities, trying to solve a puzzle that no longer exists, and every replay keeps the memory alive. What if the person you're missing isn't actually the person at all? What if you're missing a feeling, a dream, a future you imagined together? Because the biggest mistake people make after heartbreak is assuming they're grieving a person, when sometimes they're grieving a possibility. And that changes everything. Then something strange happens. Months pass, maybe even years. The person is gone. The relationship is over. Yet your mind keeps replaying the same memories. Not the arguments, not the disrespect, not the nights you cried. It keeps replaying the good moments, the smile, the laughter, the late-night conversations. Psychologists call this memory bias. When we miss someone, our brain quietly edits the story and removes parts of the pain. And that's why the past often feels better than it really was. Brain isn't trying to make you happy. It's trying to keep you safe. And for thousands of years, being abandoned by your group meant danger, survival, death. So even today, your brain treats emotional separation like a threat. That's why rejection can physically hurt. The same regions activated during physical pain become active during emotional pain. Your brain doesn't see much difference to it. Being left behind still feels dangerous. What if missing them isn't actually about them? What if you've been chasing something completely different this entire time? Because there's one hidden reason many people stay attached. A reason most never realize. And once you see it, you may never look at your past relationships the same way again. Times you don't miss the person. You miss who you were when they were around. Maybe you felt loved. Maybe you felt important. Maybe you felt hopeful. And when they leave, those feelings disappear too. So every time you think about them, You're actually remembering a version of yourself that no longer exists. And that's far more painful than losing another person. It affects the brain in ways surprisingly similar to addiction. When someone gives you affection, your brain releases dopamine. Over time, your brain begins expecting that reward. Then suddenly, the reward disappears, and just like any addiction, the brain craves another hit. Sometimes what feels like love is actually withdrawal. This is why logic often fails. Friends may tell you, they treated you badly, you deserve better, you should move on. And logically, they're right. But emotional attachment doesn't live in logic. It lives deeper, inside habits, memories, chemistry, identity. You can't think your way out of a feeling overnight. It's the twist. Missing someone who hurt you doesn't mean they were special. It doesn't mean they were your soulmate. And it definitely doesn't mean you should go back. It simply means you're human. Your brain formed a bond, and breaking bonds takes time. The pain is evidence of attachment, not evidence of destiny. Healing doesn't happen when you stop missing them. Healing happens when missing them no longer controls your choices. You can remember. You can feel sadness. You can even miss them. But you continue moving forward anyway. That's real growth. Not forgetting, not erasing, but carrying the lesson without carrying the pain. The biggest lesson psychology teaches us is this. Humans don't become attached to reality. We become attached to meaning. And often, the meaning we create is far stronger than the person themselves. That's why letting go feels impossible. Because we're not releasing a person. We're releasing a story. Oh, why do we miss people who hurt us? Because the brain remembers rewards. Because attachment creates bonds. Because memories become stories. Because hope refuses to die easily. But the moment you understand this, something changes. You stop asking, why do I still miss them? And start asking, what is this experience trying to teach me? And that question has the power to change your entire life, because sometimes the person who hurt you also teaches you how to heal.